An international school in Kuala Lumpur got into trouble with the government for a student performance that was branded anti-palm oil propaganda. But is it possible to speak up for the rainforest whilst also supporting palm oil? As you might know from your school textbooks, Malaysia is the world's second biggest exporter of palm oil, and that's worth 20 billion USD a year to us. The value chain impacts close to 3 million Malaysians, including whole communities that depend entirely on palm oil plantations to keep them out of poverty. There was a major boom in palm oil production in the 90s, and although prices have dropped since then, usage is still on the up. Palm oil is the world's most produced, consumed, and traded vegetable oil and can be found in thousands of everyday products, from lipstick to shampoo to chocolate. This is because it's cheap and efficient. To yield the same quantity of alternatives like sunflower oil or rapeseed oil would take significantly more land. Now here's the problem. The three biggest palm oil buyers are India, China, and the EU. But headlines have screamed that the EU will ban palm oil by 2020 because its production results in excessive deforestation. In fact, it's not quite a ban. The EU will remove subsidies for palm oil that's used in biofuels, but only under certain conditions. Still, this is incentive enough for EU countries to find replacement oils and stoked fears of a total ban in the future. Environmentalists have complained that crops like soy weren't also included in the ban, as the Commission also recognized that soybean expansion has been directly responsible for deforestation, albeit on a smaller scale. All this has led to speculation that this is a trade war. Is it a coincidence that rapeseed, sunflower seed, and soya beans are the main oil seeds grown in the EU? But there are valid environmental concerns about plantations in Malaysia. It is very well documented that Malaysia's ancient rainforests are shrinking dramatically. It is also well documented that this is because the forest is being burnt, logged, and cleared to make way for plantations. Destroying forest and peatland to make way for oil palm plantations releases huge amounts of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, fueling climate change. And the haze and air pollution we often experience? Partly attributed to forest clearing fires. Land grabs, pollution, and flooding are forcing the orang asli out of their ancestral lands, and endangered wildlife species like orangutan are on the brink of extinction in the wild. Oh, then there's also reports of slavery and child labor. So what have we been doing about it? Minister of Primary Industries Teresa Kok has announced that she is seeking to cap expansion for oil palm estates at 6.5 million hectares by 2023. This is an important announcement because around 17% of our land is already used for palm oil, and it would mean the end of deforestation in Malaysia because of palm oil. But there are still concerns about the practices of existing plantations. Enter the Roundtable on Sustainable Palm Oil. Since 2002, respected NGOs like WWF and Hutan have been working alongside global palm oil industry leaders to create sustainable growing standards. To achieve RSPO certification, plantations must abide by rules like no new planting on peatlands, no clearing of primary forest, and proof of land ownership.
Admission that palm oil in the past has caused major destruction. That has to happen. But beyond that, the producing countries need to say, well, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to save forests. This is how we're going to get the industry to play a bigger role in saving biodiversity.
But RSPO isn't without critics. In 2015, an EIA report by an independent NGO in the UK criticized the auditing process, saying auditing firms are fundamentally failing to identify and mitigate unsustainable practices, conducting woefully substandard assessments, and in some cases they are colluding with plantation companies to disguise violations of the RSPO standard.
In any system, there's going to be flaws, right? So we have a complaint system. We've made it more independent, better resourced, so that we can tackle these complaints on maybe lax auditing better.
Separately, a University of Queensland study found no significant evidence that RSPO was better in its environmental, social, and economic performance compared to non-certified plantations.
We've got other research that says that we do have positive impact on the environment. From a climate change perspective, but last year our members avoided 2 million tons of carbon emissions, which is equivalent to about 400,000 cars taken off the road. From a smallholders perspective, we have now 143,000 smallholders certified. But what's more important is each of those smallholders, based on research, it would seem that they gain more than 30% in terms of income, extra income.
Malaysia also has its own certification, the Malaysian Sustainable Palm Oil Certificate. This was launched in 2015 and is said to identify premium quality palm oil sustainably grown and produced in Malaysia. It was also created to address the fact that historically, small growers struggled to meet RSPO standards due to cost, although this is something the RSPO is taking steps to resolve. The government has announced that 100% of palm oil growers in Malaysia will be MSPO certified by the end of the year. So what's the difference?
One is essentially a voluntary scheme, which is the RSPO system. MSPO, the idea is it's going to be a legal requirement at some point down the line. It's easy to implement, however, it doesn't really address the critical issues, which is what we started with in the first place in terms of the concerns around deforestation, the expansion on peat, and some of the labor issues in terms of modern-day slavery.
This is supported by several studies which found the RSPO certification is the most effective of all the regional sustainability certifications. The studies mention that the MSPO has a lack of detail regarding social impact assessment, no established complaint system, and vague environmental requirements. For example, there is no mention of the rights to water, so if plantations are polluting waterways, they can still be certified as sustainable, as that is not part of the assessment criteria. At the moment, we haven't seen any reports on whether certified Malaysian MSPO plantations have continued to comply since they were first certified 4 years ago. And certification is not a complete solution anyway.
Why would anybody want to be certified in the first place? Because all I do is I produce and I sell to someone who isn't really bothered about RSPO, and I don't get anything from it anyway. So I think the financial implications for the smaller producers is something that I don't think people have taken on board. So, I mean, everything has a boom and a bust period, and we are no longer in the boom period. Every single producer that speaks to us is talking about what are my alternatives.
So when we circle back, is palm oil itself the problem? Probably not. If a farmer converted his palm oil plantation to soybean, the issues of pesticides, fair wages, and deforestation would remain. And if you're comparing industries, the worst offender is actually industrial cattle farming. Scientists have found that this has the largest water footprint. It is the largest land user and is also responsible for deforestation. So without new land, it's time for innovation.
If you want to develop land, why not develop it as a multi-crop system? Because once you start having diversity in your farm, you now have access to building up naturally the organic material in the soil. Then going chemical-free also becomes an option. You know, once chemicals are away, there's more insects, more birds, more wildlife are coming into the farm. If you have more of these guys, and we're all cooperating in this sort of happy family way, we can start to then think about corridors. I think if we can achieve that, I mean, that's all the fun stuff that or the things that you dream of about sustainable development.
Can we support rainforest protection and palm oil production? It seems like the answer is yes. Replacing palm oil with today's alternatives would cause more destruction, but rapid improvements are needed in the palm oil sector if we stand a chance of growing the economy without losing our natural heritage.